Let's go.
G'day everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of the AJXP show, the Rebel Moon spoiler special thing, whatever you want to call it. Put on your helmets, let's go, let's have a drink. Joining me tonight, to my left, I think that's how the screen works, is Michael. Welcome, buddy.
Hey man, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Very good, thank
Hello,
you for
everyone.
joining us. And to my right, we have Snoogle Puff. How are you, buddy?
I am good, mate. I've missed you. We haven't done this for a few weeks.
It's been a few weeks. It's a lot longer than we normally go without doing a show.
Yeah.
But I suppose, I don't know, every year we do break away for a little while. But
Yeah,
we
but we
decided...
usually catch up. This time we've
Yeah, that's
been,
true.
We've not had a live stream or anything together. We've just been
No,
ships
well-
in the night.
Maybe you can come and join us online, buddy.
You've been online once in
Last
2.5
night.
weeks.
Yeah, and you said you were going to get online, but you didn't turn up.
Yeah, and all the response I got was, "Oh, what level are you?" I asked if you want to fucking play, not what level I am.
Yeah, what was wrong with me yesterday? What was I doing? Oh, well, that was all while I was doing the lawns. I'm not going to fucking take my gloves off to reply to this. Plus, who plays Division anyway? All right, tonight we are going to be talking about Rebel Moon, and if it wasn't enough warning in the title of this video, there's going to be spoilers, so be warned. We're talking about anything and everything, and we'll answer any questions in the chat as well if you've got any questions about it. But we're starting off, as it says there, initial thoughts. So we're going to talk about what we thought about the movie initially, whether it be before we watched it or, you know, as soon as we started watching it and things like that. So who wants to start that, or do you want me to kick that off? Does anyone?
You kick it off.
You
All
kick
right.
it off, mate.
Well, I heard about this movie because of you, Michael. I didn't even know it existed. Back last year when Snoogs went to Fiji, you filled in, Michael, and before the show, you organised that we were going to talk about this movie, Rebel Moon. And I didn't know what it was, and I looked into it and I watched the trailer. You kind of gave me a little bit of a blurb and told me the story about how Rebel Moon, and correct me if I get this wrong because it's just from memory. Apparently this movie Rebel Moon was first pitched, and its initial sort of existence was because it was going to be a Star Wars film in the Star Wars galaxy, but something happened along the line and it didn't turn out that way, and Zack Snyder, the co-writer or whatever, said, fuck it, I'll make my own Star Wars movie with hookers and blackjack. And is that essentially what happened?
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Like, he'd been working on it for he had the idea 20-something years ago. He pitched it to his film professor. And the whole idea was the Jedi 7, Seven Samurai, obviously. But he's a massive Star Wars fan. And yeah, he had originally had envisioned it to be like an Elseworld Star Wars story. So not involving any of the main characters, but set in that Star Wars universe.
Right.
And I believe it was around the time when Disney was buying out Lucasfilm, and he was just starting the DC stuff, and it ended up getting a bit too complicated. So, it ended up turning into his own IP, and he's obviously got some big plans
Now,
for it.
From that introduction to this movie existing, I was excited because I like Star Wars films generally, and I have no real opinion either way when it comes to a Zack Snyder film. Whatever. If it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. What was the one I said I didn't like? The zombie one?
Dawn of the Dead? Army of the Dead. You didn't like
Dead.
Army of the Dead, but you didn't realise Dawn of the Dead was his.
Yes, I didn't realise it was his. I liked Dawn of the Dead with Ving Rhames and that.
because it was good.
But I didn't like, Army of the Dead. So, I mean, I'll take it or leave it with Zack Snyder. I don't really care too much. I just like it if I like it. So I was excited for this movie and was looking forward to it, and and eventually it came out and watched it, and I now have a somewhat based level opinion of it, which we'll go into a little bit more. But quickly before we get your initial thoughts, we should say hello to everyone that's joined us. Wraithy, hello, and Radicus, and I think that's it. Mad, we've got heaps. People might. It's because they don't want it. The other 4,000 people that we're gonna watch haven't seen the movie yet, so they don't want it spoiled. So
Yeah,
I guess that's
sort
why.
of true.
Yeah.
Radicus said I turned it off as soon as I saw the chick with lightsabers fighting the spider chick. Just seriously. That's a hot take right there. And Radica says, I'm a Star Wars nut, but this would have been a shit Star Wars. Yeah, you wait for the next Star Wars and then make that fucking claim. All right, Michael or Snoogs?
I want to make everyone uncomfortable.
I know, that's a fucking thing, isn't it? Who would like to tell us their initial thoughts? Michael, let's hear from Michael. You tell us about how you loved it just because of who's making it.
No, fuck off. Obviously, I'm a big Zack Snyder fan. He is one of my favorite directors. And I appreciate what he does. I like his signature style, so I was quite excited going in. I did know that there is 2 versions of each film. There's 2 films and there's 2 cuts of each film. So I was a little unsure how the family-friendly one was going to go. And because I think Zack's best when he's unrestrained, creatively, just when he can just let the most wild, craziest ideas out of his head. But yeah, I liked it. It delivered what I thought it was going to deliver. It had his signature in full force. The operatic slow motion, the breathtaking visuals, the big grand sweeping score. Great production design. Like I'll get into it more later, but I think as an initial entry to this big vast world that he's making, I felt like it was a good first step. The PG-13 probably felt a little misaligned with the core intention and I guess the true vision, but overall I thought it was cool.
Right. Okay. So
sorry, I'll just quickly add, I'm not a massive obsessive Star Wars nerd either, so I don't particularly I knew it was inspired by and references it a lot, but I don't really care. That's what happens with all media, really. It's influenced by what's come before. So yeah, I didn't get my knickers in a knot like Radicus clearly did.
What's he saying?
About the hot blades being similar to lightsabers. Obviously he didn't like that.
Yeah, it definitely that scene. Actually, I've got it here. If we want to have a quick look at it, I want to make a comment of this. This scene just made me think: if your swords could fucking do that,
keep killing until every mother weeps tears.
Do the heat up thing, because this is how the fight starts. Let me tell you this. All right, just normal swords, and then you fast forward to where she finds the button on the swords. Wrong button. If your swords could do that the whole time, why didn't you do that at the beginning? Do you want to fucking lose?
If it was a real fight, obviously she would. But the whole idea is that you got to create momentum and escalation in the choreography of the fight. You don't just go straight to the money shot as soon as the fight starts.
Well, that's in a movie world, but I'm just saying, like, if you want a movie,
what do you think?
Yeah, I get that, but there's still got to be real world logic to it. Seriously, if you've got a fucking a machine gun, like, why put it on fucking single fire? Like, just mow the fucker down. like Indiana Jones. When the dude's there with
the whip.
No, and then he pulls out the gun and just shoots the guy.
But even that, I mean, that was because he was sick. So originally that was meant to be a big epic fight scene, but in Harrison Ford had...
Don't you know everything? Wow.
He had like I can't remember what it's called, but he was really, really crook, and he could barely stand. And they're like, he's like, I can't do this fight scene. So they're like, okay, we'll just take your gun out and shoot him. Done.
That's bad.
Yeah, really cool, iconic little piece.
I didn't know that. All right, let's hear from Snoogs. Your initial thoughts.
Initial thoughts. I was actually looking forward to it. I have what was that too? I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with Snyder's films. his whole Justice League, I think, killed DC for a lot of people, including me. And then you've got, on the other end, you've got Watchmen 300 and what was it? Army of the... No. What's the Dead one again? I keep
Dawn of the Dead.
mixed up. Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead's one of the best movies he's ever done.
Yeah.
But then it comes to this. And I turned it off after 39 minutes. I went, this is ridiculous. We'll dig into why more along.
Fuck, I'm keen to find out.
Yeah.
Sure. You sound real keen. Not only is the acting in it some of the fucking worst I've ever seen in a $166 million production, but then there's just everything else.
You say that like it's a lot.
Yeah. Well, it is.
That's over 2 films. He's getting 2 films for, well, technically he's getting 4. So it's really an $80 million film.
No, he's not. He's getting 2 films, and then he believed his own hype because he had this whole social media release the Snyder cut. So he's like, oh, well, that's what I've got to do now. And he's just gone, oh, I'm going to blow my fucking own ego while I'm wanking myself and release it. And then but first off, I'm going to tell everybody that I've got a R-rated version. But I'm going to release a pile of shit first. Like, what fucking...
No, see, I think that there's definitely a business decision behind releasing a PG-13 cut. So he's coming with the concept of... Because even when
it's got to be something that can be enjoyed by more people, so that, you know, the word spreads, that more people...
Yeah, but being enjoyed by more people, I think you're just coming from it from your own perspective. Like, plenty of people enjoyed it. It was #1 movie in the world for a while there.
No,
I know. I really enjoyed it.
Number one watched on Netflix, which
there you go.
That's just how many times. Yeah, but that's how many times people have started watching it, not how many times people have finished watching it.
Okay, so we're going
to do we know that for a fact?
We've got an IBM.
No, we don't.
IMDb rating of 5.7, a Rotten Tomatoes of 23, and these are combined totals.
Yeah, but look at pretty much every one of his movies over the last however many years. He has a love-hate relationship with the critics. Like, people have...
The very main point is they've gotten worse.
SF Gate, one of the worst movies ever made.
Righto. This is initial thoughts.
Is a disastrously awful film. There's such
Michael
antagonistic...
versus Snoogs.
No, but if... No, hang on. Before we get into it, the decision to do the different cuts was obviously driven by, they wanted something to get a holiday family friendly cut, and he had originally envisioned it as an R-rated. That's how he pitched it back to Kathleen Kennedy back in the day. It had to be R-rated. So that's his initial vision, and then as a compromise with the business side of Netflix, who wanted something more family friendly, he's like, I can do 2 cuts. I'll film them at the same time. I'll have my R-rated original one, and we'll cut it to have a family friendly 2-hour one that'll also give you the broader appeal. So I don't think it comes down to, stroking his ego and stuff like that.
Anyway, we're moving on beyond the initial thoughts now, so maybe we should just move on, don't you think?
Yes, why not?
We've got our initial thoughts. Let's move on to story and characters, okay? All right, so let's sort of nut out the story here. So we've got, and this is, once again, it's going to be spoiler territory. We've got farmers that are, not your fighting types, and they get sort of approached by, what do you call these guys? They're some sort of like overworld, like they're fucking Nazis, basically.
It's the Empire from Wish.com.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. They're like a weird Nazi version, like in the movie anyway. Yeah. These crew comes down to this planet where these farmers are just doing their thing and farming, and they sort of strong arm them into helping. However, there's a character there named Cora who knows that who these people are. They know they mean trouble. They won't keep their word. They're going to kill people. They're not to be trusted. And then it sort of turns into a we need to fight back sort of story. And that's essentially what they do. The bulk, the like midsection of the movie is like a recruitment series where they go and they find these different people, these oddballs, outcasts, strange sort of people to form, assist with an army to try and take down the oppressive force.
Imperium.
Yeah, so that's in a nutshell. That's pretty much where the movie goes because it is only part one of a two-part story. I think is it 2 parts?
Yeah,
Only
2 parts.
Yeah, and that's essentially where it goes. But before we go too far, actually no, we'll talk about that in the next section. That's all right. So yeah, that's the story, and does anyone want to elaborate on the story? Say something that I haven't pointed out that might be important.
No, that's pretty much the crux of it, yeah.
Yeah, you've covered the main points, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, now the characters. Now, I know, I suppose this is probably a little bit polarizing because, Pat, you think the acting was terrible, so I don't think you had much of weren't impressed by the characters.
Let me take the lead on it and give you a bit of an insight into a lot of thoughts. Now,
sure.
The main cause of, I think, the acting being poor was that the script wasn't strong. The script, it kind of feels like it's missing a lot. That's where the PG-13 really does hinder it. There's been a lot of cuts that have been taken out of it, and I don't think the way that the editing has been done has been able to make it flow. But the characters themselves, because it was cut so short and had been, you can tell it's been taken to with a hacksaw, so to speak, they weren't given enough time to really progress on anything. Cora, as much as I like Sophia Boutella, I'm not convinced as her as a leading character or a leading actor. She does some justice to the role, but her delivery on a lot of the lines and a lot of what goes on is just an absolute snooze fest. There's even 2 sections in there where you have these intense, emotional moments where she does this drawn-out, protracted monologue, which it was just borderline laughable. It was really, really poorly done, and it was just like it was like a monologue. High school production.
When did she do a monologue?
She did 2 different times when she's talking about her past in 2 different sections.
Right. Okay.
When she's just sitting there, and it's a very big, heavy, it's a word heavy section, and it just does not carry well. It does not fit in. It slows everything down. It's you can tell it's part of a bigger picture. It's a bigger story. There's more things happening, but because it's been cut into this part, it just doesn't give.
Was it this scene?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there's the 2 bits. There's, I think what he's referring to is one when her and Gunnar first leave and they're on the mountain around the fire and
on the hilltop.
She talks about her backstory, and then the second one I think is when they're in the ship after they've had the fight with Hamada, the Spider Woman, and she elaborates a bit further on stuff there.
That would be it. Yeah. But is this movie what all those actors and writers were striking about before? Like, is this something that was written by ChatGPT? Because it just doesn't have that flowing feel. It doesn't have that emotional connection. It just feels flat and boring. And
now,
like I just couldn't be excited to push through it. It bored me for the entire time.
See, I don't overly care about this movie. Like, I've been a fairly mid-level running sort of opinion on this movie. But when I hear you say things like that, Pat, I think, where the fuck are you getting this from? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
I had to push myself to watch this. That's
Why?
how poor it was.
It's
not, it was terrible.
Though.
I'm giving you all the reasons.
Yeah, but
I'm giving you all the reasons of why I found it to be shit.
They're fabricated.
How are they fabricated?
Because it doesn't make sense.
Reasons.
Yeah, but what you're talking about, it doesn't flow. I don't understand that. What do you mean? It's just a fucking movie. I see this movie as something that I found it hard to like fucking love. I didn't think it was amazing, but I absolutely can't say that it was rubbish. Like I just don't get it.
I can do something to put it in the right sort of space for you. I'd prefer to go and watch Napoleon again.
You're a fucking idiot. Napoleon was boring for a different reason.
That's how much this bored me. I had to force myself after getting on the drink to watch through it.
You mentioned in the Discord the other day watching that Black Demon film with the big shark one with Josh Lucas.
That was terrible. Yeah.
It was terrible. But did you sit through that all the way through?
On my phone for most of it. I didn't watch most of the second half, no.
Okay. Because I was going to say, if you took 3 goes to get through Rebel Moon, but you somehow managed to sit through that Black Demon rubbish,
I only took.
I feel like your preconceived opinions may have coloured your,
this is
reception of Rebel Moon a bit there.
I didn't have preconceived, ideas on it. The amount of shit that comes out.
Well, you said you turned it off after 20 minutes. I feel like
39.
That was your second viewing, wasn't it?
No,
20 minutes was the first one. Then it was 37. Then you finally got through it.
No, it was 39 minutes for the first sitting.
Actually, I think you corrected yourself because I think you did initially say 20 minutes and then I think you corrected yourself in Discord.
Yeah.
Right.
So, because it was after that first fight scene in the barn where I just sort of had some little talky moment after that, and I went, yeah, I'm done. I'm not sitting through this. And it was only because we decided to do this show that I went and sat through the rest of it. And
I want to make it clear as well, I don't want to change your mind. I know it's not going to happen, but I don't want to change your mind. But I want to kind of understand where the fuck you're coming from with this shit. Radicus is in there saying the script was shit, stick to your guns, Snoogs. You're on fucking drugs. Like, seriously.
The script was terrible.
It fucking
when you can type a sentence without spelling a word wrong, then you can criticise scripts, all right? So just fucking sit down.
Hey, don't pick on our viewers.
No.
Actually, I think I just did. I'm fucking...
He's going to give it to me later in the Discord, but...
Guilty anyway.
While he can't give it back to me, I'll lay it in.
Yeah. But I thought the... Sorry, Michael, have you got something to say?
I was going to dive into it a bit more, but go, you say your thing and then I'll...
I was just going to say, I thought the characters were just like I thought the movie was. They were good. They were not amazing. Probably the most interesting character was the one that wasn't in it for very long, that fucking robot. I wanted to see more of Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, Anthony Hopkins.
With the fucking deer horns. Yeah. Like at the end when you see him with the deer horns, you're like, did you the whole time we were watching this movie, have you been slaughtering wildlife?
Just wandering around, cutting horns off the native fauna. Oh, this looks good. Apparently in the archive, he does have like him and the soldier that, when we watched it the other day, there's that young soldier kid that kind of stands up against the typical bad guy soldiers. They get more screen time and character development. And Noble is presented in a lot more violent, aggressive way. But obviously a lot of that gets cut with the PG-13 cut, unfortunately. I want to say, I think the decision to release the 2 versions of each film was a mistake. I don't think that is what should have happened. I know Netflix wanted a big holiday film, and they're looking at this long term. We're going to build this into a big IP. How can we stretch this out over 6 or so months? How can we get more eyes onto it? But personally, I think he envisioned it as with a hard R. I know that kind of hard R, but he envisioned it with to be a really violent, sexual, crazy kind of film, and the decision to cut it down into a family-friendly PG-13 thing, I think, was a mistake. I still enjoyed it, but
I agree with that.
I know in the back of my mind, the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, this is the truncated version. This is the edited, this isn't what it was meant to be, which kind of took me out of it a couple of times because I was like, I really want to see what he's... Now I've just also seen some of the novelization stuff, with the tentacles and some other details. I think the full version is going to be really wild, and that's what I want, and that's what I wish they kind of, even if they wanted to do it, release both at the same time. Like, give us the choice. Like, here's a family-friendly one, and here's the crazy one.
Yeah.
And I think that probably would have been received better because I reckon most people would have that weren't watching it with kids or whatever, would have went straight to the R cut
100%.
and seen it as it was actually intended. But so yeah, that did spoil it a bit for me, even as a big fan. But I guess like that.
Well, I think that's its biggest issue. Its biggest issue is its rating.
Yeah,
it's cut down to PG-13, so it's had all this substance and everything taken out of it that is something that you could watch to help build the characters and expand on. There's lots of scenes in there where you can sit there and you can pick what movie it's inspired from, or if you want to jump on the bandwagon with the rest of the critics, it's stolen from, or however people want to talk about it. But a lot of that time when you see a snippet and you go, okay, that's inspired from, like, the Griffin, and you've got bits of Harry Potter, like the fucking bowing
Avatar
at the start and whatnot, and then Avatar to try and get to write it, and all these bits and pieces. You sit there and you watch it and you go, oh, come on. Like, seriously, it's borderline, scene for scene with a Harry Potter movie.
I feel like this is where
when you can expand it. Sorry, just when you can expand upon that, and I can all but guarantee there'd be some more fleshed out to that whole scene, and how that guy ends up working or knowing how to deal with the Griffin. There's obviously got to be more to it, but at the moment, the way that it's been cut, it just leaves a lot to be wanting. It's lacking.
It definitely, you can tell it was not really intended to be a PG-13 thing. And I feel like the R cut, well, it probably won't be an R for Australia, but that original cut would have been that extra unique flavor that gave it enough of its own identity to distance itself from Star Wars, because there's no R-rated Star Wars content, right? But I think also I feel like it's too easy to criticize it for the things that it's inspired by, because it's intentionally done to lean on all those on the nose genre tropes, that blending of sci-fi and fantasy. And I feel like that's like a lazy way out of criticizing the film as well, because obviously there's a lot of Star Wars similarities, but there's also Dune, Excalibur, you've got Heavy Metal Magazine. Obviously the biggest one is Seven Samurai, which is the core of the story. But yeah, I like I said, it's too easy to criticize Rebel Moon for having elements that feel too familiar, because it's overlooking the fact that it was intentionally a mashup of those kind of genre tropes. And Rebel Moon's similarity to Star Wars also comes from George Lucas and Zack Snyder sharing a lot of common influences, not necessarily because Rebel Moon directly copied Star Wars. So like the plot of Seven Samurai is probably one of the most heavily referenced or readapted stories in cinema. Like you can go like Magnificent Seven, Dirty Dozen, like fucking A Bug's Life. They're all based on that same premise. And then you got Zack Snyder, who is a very big fan of Joseph Campbell's Monomyth, which should be recognizable to anyone with a passing familiarity, the most basic sci-fi fantasy kind of stories. And I think what makes Rebel Moon special is not necessarily the originality of any particular aspect of it, but it's the overall like tapestry of influences that is assembled. So like if you zoom in on any one particular thing, like the brothel, it's like, oh, obviously that's the cantina, bar, whatever from Star Wars. And this cyberpunk thing is that's obviously Blade Runner. That much is obvious. But I think taking a step back and you look at the arrangement of influences, in it is what gives it its own unique flavor. And then he adds his own visual, palette to it as well.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the delivery of the story is what's, I like the influences. I like being able to sit there and pick it. I liked the fact that when they first met Charlie Hunnam's character, it felt very Firefly, because I'm a complete nerd in that respect.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like there's, I'm a sci-fi nerd. It's that simple. This should have been something that I loved. I love being able to pick and say, I know where that's from. I know I feel that influence. I feel that influence. It's just the delivery of it bored me.
You can be influenced without copying, says Radicus. All right, well, let's not get into that, because I could argue that for hours. Let's move on. We're going to go into the next.
Can I just before we do, can I just say that when you look at like Star Wars, he's saying, it's just copying Star Wars, and most people would probably consider that like a unique.
What did Star Wars copy?
Aesthetic. But Star Wars, when it was released, was criticized as being derivative and unoriginal.
It was Dune.
Star Wars. Well, yeah, like it sold that, but it was also heavily inspired by Kurosawa's Hidden Fortress, which is, Seven Samurai. So when you look at, if you look at Zack Snyder and George Lucas's influences, if it was like a Venn diagram, it's almost just a circle, because it's Kurosawa, it's Joseph Campbell, it's Dune. There's a lot of crossover. So obviously, there's going to be a lot of similarity. But
years of cinema behind us, there's going to be some influences that are going to overlap.
Yeah, and I think just coming out and saying, it's just a copy is not acknowledging the fact that it's intentionally doing it. Like, it's intentionally self-aware. Like, Snyder's been very public with all of his films about his movies being self-aware. He describes his director's cut as Verhoeven-esque. So it's going to, and I think that's going to give you an idea of like how insane that director's cut's going to be. But it's also, to me, tells me it's going to be intentionally self-aware and really over the top with its relationship with all those genre tropes.
In saying that, we could probably say that this show is a rip-off of the Synth Spacey show, because there's a couple of people on as live stream talking about things. But anyway, let's move on to the next section, which is we're going to talk about visuals and sounds, or sound. And I have something that I want to point out for the very first thing when it comes to visuals, and it's the very overt penis through the vagina shot in the sky. I saw this video was doing some rounds on the internet talking about the visuals and how great they look. All I saw was a cock and a vagina. Let's have a look. That is a gigantic blue waffle.
Yep.
When we watched it the other day and we took some notes, I think I told you, my very first note was vagina rift.
Yep.
But like, he did the same thing in Man of Steel when he gave the Kryptonians all their technology a biological design influence. He had And he deliberately lent into the sexual organ aspect, because they were a race that hadn't conceived naturally in centuries, right? So that came out through the design of the technology. Remember in Man of Steel, there's that when all the Kryptonians like Zod and all that stuff get imprisoned in those things and they fly up, and they're just big cock ships. They just fly up into the sky. And then you look at his other ones, like in Zack Snyder's Justice League, his version, not the shit one that we won't go into, but there's certain doors. There's doors that are the same kind of thing. So I feel like it's all deliberate. Like even the scene when
look at the way it opens.
Oh yeah. Even the scene when the girls are talking about having sex with the hunter dude, and then he deliberately has the slow-mo shot of her throwing the seeds, spilling all the seeds on the ground. It's deliberate.
I couldn't find a clip of it, but there's a scene where the Cora is talking with her adopted father, and I made the comment to Michael. I said, "Why are these two sharing a bedroom?" And you said, oh, it's a house. And I said, well, their beds look like they're in the same room. And Cora closes the curtain, which I'm certain that her father figure supplied for her and said, here, have these curtains, because they're sheer. They are see-through. And I'm like, she's about to take her clothes off, and her father figure, who's technically not her father, so he could, it's not as weird as it sounds. He's like full gonna rub one out while she gets naked. And the very next scene is her dropping seed all from her crotch onto the field.
White seeds too. White seeds.
I'm like, wow, this is like a porno for like the poor or something here, but it's yeah. It was quite funny, but I couldn't find that scene in a clip because you can't actually share a Netflix screen. It makes there's like copyright protection, and the screen just goes black, kind of like when I banged the desk on the last episode of the show last year. But yeah, you can't actually share that, so I can only use like clips that I can find. So I couldn't find that one, but yeah. So the visuals are kind of a little bit suggestive, but a lot of people have talked about the visuals. Like I think it was Radicus even said in the chat that he was talking about how he didn't like the movie, but the visuals were good. I thought most of the visuals are good, but there's some pretty ordinary looking CGI in there if you have a look. And we'll have a look at some. If you guys want to take on, I'll put up some videos. If you got comments about your visuals and sound.
Well, before Pat gets into the slow motion, because I know that's coming, and I'll let him have his moment and slam that as much as he wants. One thing I do not like is Zack's current obsession with that dream lens. And he used it in Army of the Dead, and he's used it again here. I'm not a fan. I want him to move on from that sooner rather than later. And you can see like he's customized all his camera rigs to include this old lens that he's obsessed with. But the super, narrow depth of field and the way it blurs the edges, and I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I
didn't like that either.
And one of the best things about Snyder is like his attention to detail and everything, his production design and the sets and the costumes and all that kind of stuff, and especially with a unique IP that he's created here, where he's been working on it for 20 years and worked out this really detailed world. I feel like you're just losing, like 50% of it to blurred background. I don't like it. I want him to stop. Obviously, it's too late for Rebel Moon, but I hope he gets this out of his system sooner rather than later, and we can go back to, more traditional, normal, I guess. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, I don't think I've got an example of it, but I know what you're talking about, and it was annoying, where it wasn't only the background being blurred, the background was also distorted. It had like a fisheye lens in the background. And that was annoying because sometimes I like to look off to the background and see what's going on. And it's like, ugh, what's wrong with my eyes? That sort of thing.
I feel like there's probably artistic uses for it, like maybe in a dreamlike sequence or which is probably where it got its name. I don't know. But using it through an entire film, it doesn't. Yeah, it's not my cup of tea.
Here's a little bit of an example. It's not a great one, but have a look at this shot. So you can see that Sindri here in the middle, he's clear focus, and then you've got Cora in the background who's blurry. But look at the walls here.
Yeah.
They're like skewed. And over here, that wall would obviously be straight, but it's bent. That sort of stuff.
That's trying to hide the overuse of green screen.
Oh, is that all green screen? I don't think it is.
That would be actual set, but it is a good way to hide, especially with having probably a budget on the lower end for modern franchises. It will hide a lot of the imperfections, but for him it's an artistic choice. He loves that lens, and he's been obsessed with it for a few years now, and I can't get behind it. I tried to give it a go with Army of the Dead. I was, and And then hearing that he was going to use it for Rebel Moon, I was like, I hope he dials it back a little bit, but he hasn't, and I can't say I'm a big fan of
Look,
it.
I didn't like it either, but it wasn't really a big, a sort of deciding factor on my opinion on the movie. Madago says this is a take on his pitch for a Star Wars movie that got rejected, though, right? Sort of. We don't really know if it was rejected or we don't know why, but yes, it was originally a pitch for a Star Wars film.
Yeah.
An autistic choice.
It was.
Yeah.
But in terms of, I guess we're talking visuals, I did like the mix of practical effects and CGI, especially in the brothel. There was a moment or two with that little, was it the Metroid, that gaming looking alien bug thing?
Yeah, I have that.
Yeah, using that as an actual puppet in some scenes. It was CGI when it was jumping off the table and stuff like that. But I feel like there was a decent mix of, the cool costumes, some practical effects, and CGI. There's a few moments where the CGI doesn't quite 100% work, like with the Griffin flight scene, and I think we spoke about when Jimmy gets in the shoulders, the soldiers shoot Jimmy at the start and he flops around a bit awkwardly. So it's not perfect, but I do like, considering you look at modern Marvel films that are like everything is CGI, I like that there was at least an attempt to do a bit more practical effects in this.
Yeah, I thought I had the Metroid thing, but I don't seem to have it. But yeah, that, like what you said, the Metroid, yeah, that was clearly a puppet, and then obviously changed to CGI when it run off. The CGI, like I said before, the CGI was mostly good, but there was a couple of awkward looking shots. Like, let's have a look at, let's see if it's on here. Yeah, Tarak flying the Griffin. So let's go to when he gets it up in the air. The most of it looks pretty good, but there are some obviously awkward bits that are in there.
I feel like for what the amount of stuff he had to bring to life, that he obviously couldn't use real things for this and alien worlds and all that kind of stuff. And considering the budget it's not from a major studio, I feel like he did all right for most of it. But yeah, there was a couple of points. This is one of the examples where it was not quite perfect. But I mean, what movie does have perfect CGI start to finish these days? Especially when there's so much of it. There's always going to be a couple of shots.
Come on, Flash did it so well.
Yeah. Yeah, rubber Flash, yeah. But, and I liked a lot of the action being up close and personal. I liked the guns having that kind of lava bullet effect rather than just like lasers or something. The way when they hit something, they'd splash and like burn through things. I thought that's a cool concept. I'd like to know a bit more about that, like the way that tech works. That may be a book and technology or Rebel Moon thing, not necessarily in the movie. But yeah, I think this is probably the time where I hand it over to Snoogs to start laying his boot into the excessive slow-mo. Go for it, Snoogs.
I'll leave the slow-mo for the end, because something that you have to agree on. The way that Snyder does his visuals is it's kind of like what you want cinema to be, have this big awe effect, and be able to transport you away to worlds that don't exist, you can't go to. So once again, he brings that back. It's got the obligatory lens flare and obviously the dream lens as well, which is a bit.
There's a good example of the dream lens on the screen now.
Yeah.
So I'm with you that it's overused, the dream lens. The lens flare has kind of become a staple in anything sci-fi over the last years. And
yeah, thanks, JJ.
Yeah, JJ Abrams.
Yep. So that's got its sort of moments. One thing I wanted to point out, the actual character designs as well. a lot of the character designs do have this feel of a Star Wars world, but they're suitably done in a way that they're darker. They don't have that family-friendly edge to them.
Yeah.
These, you can tell they're darker. You can tell they're living on the edge, and they're trying to sort of push through, and that sort of comes across really well. Sound, mate. Once again, Tom Holkenborg.
Yeah.
Which
Chunky XL.
Yeah. So he's worked with Snyder many times before. Once again, mate.
Yep.
Epic, grandeur, hit it out of the park with all the sort of stuff
Yeah.
to it.
I loved his score.
Yeah,
so good.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant score. One thing that I've actually noted as well is the take on the laser blasters. They do shoot more like a laser straight through, leaving that burning hole, having that splatter effect. Even though I think a few people were actually trained by stormtroopers.
Yeah, some of the shots were ordinary.
But a couple of things. There was a lot of very glaringly obvious green screen settings, and when they were green screened, the way they were lighting up the other side of the character or the actor, it was making the background seem very flat. And there's a couple of one of the very first scenes, about 4 minutes in, where she's in the field.
Yeah.
And there's the other character comes across to talk to her. There's a section behind that where it's really well lit up behind her, and everything behind, you can see birds flying, but nothing else is moving. Also, on top of when the first time they're on top of the hill having the chat, in the background of the hills, there's mist, there's all this stuff going on, but there is zero movement. It just looks flat and matte finished. It's just...
Yeah, Luke and I mentioned that bit on the hill around the fire. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
She does it. Yeah, we mentioned that.
I said that obviously looks like a set.
Yeah,
with a backdrop.
He's using that screen tech for this, isn't he?
Yeah. So it's just like, I think it's relatively new tech, and it hasn't worked out well. I actually didn't find some of the up close CGI bits, like with the Griffin and whatnot. Obviously, we've had some real shockers of late with CGI fails. So a lot of the stuff for this was actually really well done around CGI. There was parts. Look, you can be forgiven, given, like you said, the relatively small budget compared to some of your bigger studios and whatnot. A lot of stuff in space kind of looked video gamey as opposed to movies, but it's a small. It doesn't break any immersion or whatnot. It's just a small thing. But yeah, for me, overuse of the slow-mo. Like slowing things down so that Cora can touch the Griffin as it flies over. Slowing down when she throws someone onto the ground and, it's already slowed, and then they speed it up and slow it down again when he cracks and breaks the stool that's on the floor. It's something that, when used correctly, and in previous Snyder films, he's used it really well. In this one, there was just way too much and way too intense at certain stage. I kind of felt like I was watching a bloody Mythbusters episode. Like, hey, let's have a look at our new high-speed camera. Show me what we can do. And it's just, there was just way too much of it. I actually found out today, now, I don't know how real this is or how legitimate it is, because I thought it was about twice as long as I suspected. But people are stating that if the slowed down scenes were played at normal speed, there would have been 45 minutes. You could have fit 45 minutes extra footage into the 2-hour runtime.
Oh, look, let's just say that that's true. What the fuck does that fact matter?
It doesn't. It's the same as with Batman vs Superman. There were people out there counting the amount of lines of dialogue Superman had in the movie.
But that's like saying that if they didn't edit anything out, the movie would have went for 3 days.
Yeah, it would have, exactly, a 6-hour-long movie. Like he's got that. He's mapped out each thing. He's worked out his time frame, and he's made it work within that. And the speed ramping and the slow motion is, it's a signature of his films. And I know that it's probably controversial. Like it's Some people will love it, some people will hate it. Like, I don't think this is one of those movies that's going to win non-Snyder fans over. But, you know, he's that deep into his career now. I don't think he needs to be appealing to his naysayers. He's just doubling down on what he does.
I'll show you the things the visual effects that bothered me the most. And it's the omission of any sort of claret, blood, gore. It's all gone. Like, you watch this scene here, we'll skip through a little bit and watch a bit where it gets sort of violent, and there is absolutely nothing.
Well, again, that comes down to it's the PG-13 cut. So.
Yeah, and that's what I hate about it.
Yeah, same. I like this kind of scene in particular is a perfect example of where watching it, I'm like, this is cool, but I know there's more there. Like that particular moment right there that you just showed, in the like behind the scenes stuff, I saw some of her training footage, and I saw that exact moment, and she stabs him several times in the stomach and ribs, and then cuts his throat before she then moves on to the next one. And yeah, all of that's missing from this PG-13 cut.
Yeah, there is absolutely nothing, and that's my critique. I don't like this version.
Yeah.
I don't like the fact that the R version isn't out yet. I think if you're going to do what he did with the two versions, he should have released them simultaneously and make the parents decide who watches what. But the fact that that's the version I got, that disappointed me.
In his defense, it's not his decision, but I wish Netflix had said, let's release both at the same time.
Yeah, well, whatever. Whoever's fault it is, I don't really give a shit. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying that's how that version makes me feel. It just looks silly. Look, if people that haven't seen it, if you're not terribly fussed, wait for the R18 version to come out if you like a full-bodied experience. When somebody gets stabbed, even though it may not be realistic, I know when people get stabbed, blood doesn't fly everywhere, but it looks good. It's theatrical. It's over the top.
And that's what I think, kind of like what I was saying before, taking that extra step would have given it more distance to Star Wars, you know, and given it more of its own unique flavor.
Yeah.
And because even though there's a lot of very obvious similarities, you start adding people's heads exploding and blood going everywhere, and very quickly you're like, oh, it's kind of like Star Wars, but it's also not like Star Wars. So yeah, I agree. That was a big mistake, not releasing the R one straight away.
All right. Well, let's move on to the last part where we just go through a summary of what we thought and give our final scores. All right. So,
I was waiting for a screen or something.
No. I haven't put that much fucking effort. This is a one-time special. I'm not putting that much effort into a one-time special. The HXP show that's coming later this month, maybe? I don't know. That will have a little bit more theatrics. This is the PG-13. There's no hidden dicks in this one or anything like that. But I do say fuck a bit. Oh yeah. I don't know. Yeah, good point. There's a couple of overt dicks.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, right. Anyway, I think it was quite obvious. I think I'll go first, and then we'll hear from Michael, and then we'll do Snoogs. But I think it's pretty obvious that I'm fairly on the fence here. I didn't think it was like movie of the year. I didn't think it was. I didn't think the story was something that was like, oh my god, that's an amazing twist at the end. That blew my mind. I didn't think anything was overly amazing, but I sat through the movie and I enjoyed it. It was enough of an enjoyable film that I sat through it and thought at the end, I was like, yeah, okay, that's all right. Not amazing. I'm not going to go out telling people, hey, you've got to see this new movie. But if somebody asks me, have you seen Rebel Moon? Should I watch it? I will say, yeah, give it a try. You might like it. If you don't, whatever. But that's kind of where I stand, and for that reason, this was my overall score. 6 out of 10. not too middle of the road that I didn't like it or enough to say to recommend it. A little bit better than halfway, which is basically it was a sci-fi movie with explosions. I liked it, so it was pretty good. So that's sort of where I stand on it. And I'm fairly forgiving with movies, as long as it's not dead shit boring like that fucking Napoleon movie that I'll at least admit. I'm sure there are people out there that would love it, but I had no interest in that movie. So, but yeah, this one I thought it was fine. It's good. All right, Michael, what did you think overall?
Before you jump into my score, overall, I enjoyed it. Like I said, to summarize, I felt the PG-13 release was a misstep, perhaps by the Netflix executives more than anyone else. But, that's something financing and marketing people know probably better than I do. But overall, I thought for a new IP, which is getting rarer and rarer in the cinematic world these days, something with a good diverse cast, with a strong female lead. There was a lot of creativity and imagination in it with the worlds. There was, like I said, a lot of intentional leaning on those genre tropes. All in all, I really liked it. I do desperately want to see the R cut, but I also came out of it wanting to know more about that world, see the story progress, know more about the characters. And so it left me really wanting not just the R cut, but part 2 as well. So like you, not movie of the year or anything like that, not as best work, but I think it's a really solid first step into a brand new IP that can only get richer with time, with more entries and tie-ins and animations and video games and all the other stuff that they have planned for it. So my score.
Oh, sorry. Yes. No, we'll do that. Absolutely. All right.
My
so your
score was 7.5 out of 10. And I'm hoping that will be enough for me to come back and go, okay, this one's maybe an 8.5 or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was good. It was solid.
All right. Very good. Snoogs.
Well, we've pretty much said everything that needs to be said. The overuse of the slow-mo, the shallow story, the shallow characters. What the hell was Charlie doing with his Northern Irish accent? We know he's not the best at accents, but
no, he's not.
I do actually have a video where
do you have a
Charlie.
bit of that gorgeous try.
Well, this is the part where I haven't watched this actually, but it says Charlie Hunnam reveals his second Rebel Moon character. What? Second? No, he explains.
It's probably him doing a shit accent or something.
Yeah. I don't know. Let's have a look at it. I haven't watched this.
Little self-conscious. I chose to make a big move and do an accent, my favorite accent, which I've been looking for an opportunity to use. It's the Belfast accent. And I worked really hard with a fantastic dialect coach. And I must say, probably for the first time ever in my career, I absolutely nailed the accent. I think it was perfect. But the American audience couldn't really understand a word I was saying, so then we had to ADR it and pull it back a little bit. So listen, I justified it that we're several thousand years in the future, and maybe it's the space or the space version of the origin accent. I'm a little self-conscious.
So he's taken the piss that his Northern Irish accent was so bad that he ended up. I didn't hear that, but is he taking the piss out of himself there or what?
No, what he was saying is that it was so good. I feel like he was being tongue-in-cheek, but he was saying it was so good that the American audience couldn't understand what he was saying, so they had to bring it back a bit.
Right.
Either that or it was just shit.
Yeah,
it would have been
probably leading more to that.
I thought whatever they went with, I thought it was fine. Whatever.
Yeah.
It was serviceable.
Look, Yeah, I've got no interest in the second one. The PG-13 hurt it to a point where I have no interest in your R-rated version either.
See, Pat,
so
this is what does my head in with you. How can you have no interest in the second one? Isn't there a little bit of part of you?
Because it was so shallow.
No, stop.
There was no build there. There was no want to.
Isn't there at least a train wreck?
The characters.
Isn't there at least a train wreck part of you that goes, I want to see how shit this can be?
No.
And as a reviewer, you review movies. You're not wanting to have your 2 cents of this movie, of the second one. You're just like, no, I'm not even going to watch it.
No, I didn't say I'm not going to watch it. I have no interest in watching it.
Well, that to me, I assumed you meant I'm not going to bother.
If Netflix turned around and said, you know what, we saw this one as a fail, we're not going to bother with the second one, I'd go, yeah, good call. Don't care. Zero care whatsoever.
I don't understand what Michael liked about it more than I did. And I definitely don't understand what you didn't like about it less than I did. It does my head in. This is crazy.
This is where I put in the Discord, this is one of the lovely things about entertainment media. We all consume it in our own way, and everyone consumes it personally. You don't consume it with the person sitting next to you.
Yeah, but it's strange. It's like...
No, it's not strange, mate.
It is. It's like if I look at something that's red, you look at it and you're going to say it's red as well. It's not really an opinion. It's just what we're seeing. But I feel like you've seen something completely different to me. That's how it feels. How vast your opinion is, so far away from mine.
If you hadn't said that we wanted to do this tonight, I would not have finished it. I was done with it. 39 minutes, that was it. I was done. And it didn't get better from there.
Here's a question for you. Why'd you start it?
Because I was interested in it. I wanted it. Like I don't mind some of Zack Snyder stuff. I'm a sci-fi nerd. I love Star Wars. I love anything in the sci-fi world. Fuck, I've got a quote from Firefly tattooed on my arm. I'm a complete and utter sci-fi nerd. I should have loved this, but it was just shit.
It wasn't shit, though. It wasn't great, but it wasn't shit. You fucking said that you'd watch Napoleon again instead of this movie. That's where I think you need a fucking fish to the face. What the fuck?
Yeah, a fish to the face? Well, that's the one I caught when I threw that line out for you, mate. So fucking easy.
Do you honestly believe, would you honestly rather watch Napoleon? Honestly, not just being a cunt.
No, just neither of them. Neither of them again.
No. The question is.
Okay, I put this in the same
one or the other.
Category.
What are you watching?
I'd probably sit through an episode of Jersey Shore before I do this.
That's not the fucking question!
There is no answer I can give you because they're both terrible.
It's 50-50. It's not hard.
Okay, Napoleon.
You're fucked.
Napoleon had better action scenes than this.
I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Thank you. Exactly right. Hey, told you.
You know who I blame?
China.
Oh, fuck.
China.
So Pat, with the apparent co-op video game tie-in that's going to come, you going to check that out, or are you with Rebel Moon IP? Are you all done and dusted?
No, I will quite happily check it out.
I bet the game's fucked.
The game will probably be,
who's making it
in itself.
Do we know?
I don't know any details about it.
Oh, that's going to be a disaster.
I just know there's novelizations, comic tie-ins, co-op video game, animated series. Like Netflix is going
it's supposed to be this whole whole massive Star Wars type universe, and that should be amazing. But yeah, I don't have any interest in the movie.
So anyway, Pat, you didn't answer. Rebel Moon.
No, he answered.
Oh, did you? What was the answer?
Then you played your little soundboard.
What did you say?
Napoleon had better fight
Oh, you
scenes.
did answer.
I'll
That's
sit through
right.
for
That's
the
when I
fight
yelled
scenes.
at you. I forgot because I was
Yeah.
too busy trying to not have my voice explode because I'm actually sick at the moment. That's all right. All right. Well, yeah. Fuck. It's a fucking weirdos around here anyway. Radicus says we don't have to like the same stuff, guys.
Oh, thanks, Radicus.
That's true. We don't have to like the same stuff, but if you want to get along with me, you'll at least pretend to like the shit I like. I hated Titanic, and it was the biggest movie. You hated Titanic? You fucking heathen! What is wrong with you?
Titanic was amazing when it came out, mate. 3 hours, go and sit in the cinema in the middle of summer. That was great. Have a nap. Didn't have to work. And there was, you'd wake up for when there was boob and then go back to sleep. That's great.
That was the highlight. Just watch Avengers' Scavenger's Reign and live happy. What's that? I don't know. Whatever. I would choose Dune over Rebel Moon.
That's fair.
Well, you don't have to choose.
You can watch them both if you want.
Both.
Yeah. Because there's definite Dune influences in Rebel Moon and in Star Wars as well. Like every new piece of media is influenced by the stories that come before it. Dune's a lot slower, but I love Dune. Great film.
Dune was okay. I liked Dune. I didn't think it was amazing, but I liked it.
I love Dune. I really love Dune.
Yeah. It was funny when I watched Dune. I know we're not reviewing that movie, but I watched Dune. I'm like, this is a rip-off of Star Wars. And then I found out Dune came out before Star Wars.
Yeah,
Such a good rip-off to come out first.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, whatever. So I gave Dune a bit more respect after I found out that fact. I like Age XP, and that's crap, isn't it? What a fucking
Who said that?
Radicus.
Do I have to guess? Yeah, I knew
Who
it.
do you think said it?
Yeah, I knew it.
Sounds to me like Radicus.
There now.
Sounds to me like Radicus doesn't want to win the big giveaway for 2024. So do you want me? I might announce it now, just for the people that are here now. I'll give you a heads up that the big giveaway for 2024 is going to be a scuff controller.
Ooh. Great idea, Luke.
Yeah, it was my idea. I thought of it all on my own.
Yeah, you're a genius.
Because I get advised of it right now as well, so it's good.
Yes, it's going to be a scuff controller. It'll be of the winner's choice. So this year we might have to draw it maybe a little bit earlier so we can try and get it for Christmas time. But it'll be the winner's choice of either a Xbox or a PlayStation scuff controller, or even the PC one. But they're probably not going to be available. So that'll be a bad choice.
Hopefully by the end of this year, I should say. Hopefully by then there's a bit more chance of getting one.
Yeah, well, you won't get one before I do. I'm not giving one away before I get one anyway. That I can guarantee you that. So yeah, I figured, I always wanted to do the big giveaway as something that everyone could potentially really enjoy. Like, I don't want to give away like something that people wouldn't use.
Like VR glasses, for example.
Well, no, that anyone could use that. No, VR. What do you mean? How is that?
Huh?
I don't know.
Those.
What?
That was what Wraithy suggested.
Oh, VR
those glasses that give you like a cinema in your.
Oh.
But they're like stupidly expensive.
Well, no, not necessarily like that. I meant more like things that might be sort of not usable. Like, I wouldn't give away an Xbox controller in case a PlayStation user won them. That sort of stuff. That's why with the scuff
KFC
controller,
flashlight, people might try and chew it.
No, KFC flashlight would definitely be a good gift, a good prize. No, that's why I'm giving the option. It'll be either a Xbox or a PlayStation 1, because I wouldn't want the winner to then go, oh great, I've got an Xbox controller for my PS5. Thanks for that. That's what I'm trying to avoid. So that's how it's going to work. But that's what we've decided on. When I say we, I mean I've. And yeah, so that's coming soon. Snoogs, we haven't discussed it yet, but we're going to be coming back. It's either going to be late, it's the same as always. It'll be late January, early February. We'll announce it on Discord, and you'll also get a notification on this YouTube channel of when the first show for 2024 will be back. And we'll be doing more specials like this. We're going to be doing some more on different movies. We'll do some different things. If there's suggestions from any of you guys, we'll take your suggestions on board and hopefully get this special off the ground, and we'll do a few more of them. But I would like to thank Michael and Snoogs for joining me tonight and discussing a movie.
My score?
A great movie.
Give my score.
Oh, we didn't give your score. We completely forgot.
Everyone kind of guesses where it's around.
I'm going to guess it's like a 2 or a 3, I reckon. I'm going to say 2.5.
All right, this is Snoogs' score that we completely fucking glazed over. Sorry about that.
Oh, I knew it. That was close.
Sorry, Snoogs.
I'm glad we glazed over it, because that's a fucking bullshit score.
Is it what? It is not a 3 out of a 10 movie. That is fucked.
Just tell your story, Walker, mate. We'll see you for the next special.
I would have expected at least a 4. 3's just been a cunt. 3 is just being an arsehole. You fucking controversial prick.
I warned you beforehand. Mate, I could have given it a 1 and still kept my head high. I gave it a 3 for some of the good stuff he did.
You're a
and the
dick.
sound.
You are just a fucking trolling dick. I feel like the more Michael liked it, the more you hated it.
Yeah, it was like we're like magnets, obviously opposed. But I was trying to be realistic with mine, despite my like freedom for Snyder. But 3 out of 10, like I feel like that's just taking the piss.
Radicus,
like I said to you a couple of times, if it wasn't for this show, I wouldn't have finished it.
Radicus, if you this is something I've learned. If you're gonna like make fun of someone, get it fucking right. Otherwise, you look like the fool. Just a shill. Michael is a Snyder shill. I don't know what a shrill. I don't know what a shrill is. What's a shrill? Is that the feeling you get? Like
it's a sound, like a sharp, high-pitched shrill. You know, that's
a shrilly shriek.
This is what I was saying before. This is why you can't criticize scripts, Radicus, because you can't even insult people, right? And you got no excuse. You're fucking English. You should know your own language, all right?
All right. Well, that's all we've got. I think we'll finish it up. And you know what? In my preparation for this show, I completely forgot to do a game over screen.
So we're just going to go, science!
Fade to black.
Well, I've got the one for the normal show. Let's see if that applies. Anyway, I'm Lucas, and that's Snoogs.
Says.
And Michael.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.